let you know when it's ready.
Great.
Okay, Chair, we are now live.
Good afternoon and welcome to the July 23rd meeting of the Downtown Development Authority. I would ask Chad to take the roll call, please.
Thank you, Chair. Ballein,
Here.
Clark, Kristen Clark. Okay, Kroom, Jim Kroom.
He's on mute.
He's
Present.
muted.
Present.
Thank you. Dewan,
Present.
Hackney, Luke Hackney, Kruger,
Here.
Lahanis,
Here.
Levinson,
Here.
Smith,
Here.
Mayor Stevens. And that completes roll call.
Okay, we do have a quorum. We have the agenda as presented by staff. I will accept a motion to approve the agenda.
Luke Hackney, motion.
Thank you. It's been offered by Luke, seconded by myself. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda's been approved as presented. We have the minutes from our June 18th meeting. I will accept a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Luke Hackney, I'll make that motion.
It's been offered by Luke, supported by myself to approve the minutes of our June 18th meeting. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the minutes are approved unanimously. Jill Rhode, who was on the DDA, has offered her resignation. She has accepted a position with the city of East Lansing. I want to compliment Jill for her great service to our body, and she will certainly be missed. I wish her well in her new assignment. As a formality, we need to accept her resignation, so I will offer a motion to approve the acceptance of her resignation and ask for a second.
Luke Hackney, support, but didn't we do that last week?
That was for the Brownfield Authority. We have to
Gotcha.
also do it for the DDA.
Got it.
Uh,
Well, I'll support
so
that.
it's been offered to accept her resignation and support it. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Jill, for your service. And at this time, I will offer a motion to put Michael Kruger's name in nomination to become the treasurer of the DDA and ask for a second.
Greg Ballein, support.
It's been offered by myself, supported by Greg Ballein, to name Michael Kruger as our treasurer. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none. Michael, thank you for stepping up and agreeing to serve in that capacity, and I know you will do a great job. Thank you. At this time, we are in item 1.6. As with all our public meetings, we try to manage them and allow public comment. At our previous meeting, Mayor Stevens, or a couple meetings ago, Mayor Stevens asked that we extend our time limit from 2 minutes to 5 minutes to allow for public comment. I will continue in that tradition. If anyone wishes to address the board, they have up until 5 minutes. And I will offer that motion and ask for a second.
Second, George.
Been seconded by George. All those in favor of that motion to allow for public comment up to 5 minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's been adopted unanimously. With that, I will turn it over to, is it Adam? Will you be addressing our financial reports?
Yeah, I just want to mention it was discussed at Executive Finance on Monday, and it'll be discussed at Executive Finance in the future. And then once the auditor has the chance to look it over in the fall, we'll come back as a group to discuss it further.
Okay. Are there any questions of staff or of the board members for staff with regard to our financial report? Seeing none, we will go on to item 3 on our agenda. We have an email from Alice Drager, if commission members will make note. Are there any communications from staff at the present time? Seeing none, we will open up public comment at this point, item 5 on our agenda. And Adam, will you be allowing members to address the board?
Actually, Chad is going to allow members to address the board.
Okay,
Yes, thank you, Chair. Currently, there are 3 callers in the queue. Our first caller,
Chad, hold on just a second, please. Tom Fehrenbach, you're muted.
Sorry, Adam, didn't you have some communications from staff under item number 3 or
I
under
did,
4?
and I didn't get my computer unmuted in time. So, yeah, just some communications from staff. As far as development projects are concerned, the Park District project, the work continues on the Abbot. They have the final safety inspections next week. Still targeting safety, targeting a safe completion in time for a late August move-in. If there's the tight schedule is disrupted in any way due to weather or other factors, they'll need to have an alternative plan in place and communicated in advance. But we have been meeting with them and communicating on a regular basis. And we'll be discussing the MSU, FCU, and Seidel projects today. The legal services RFP, the deadline was extended to solicit additional responses, and we expect to discuss the responses at the next executive committee meeting. As far as COVID response and business support, staff has been working with MSU and a variety of other stakeholders to coordinate a messaging campaign to provide a unified, cohesive front with messaging and create those materials that are also consistent both on campus, off campus. The messages will be consistent on campus, off campus. And it's really going to promote and encourage safe behaviors and the safe reopening of downtown. Banners and signs are being produced and will be installed in the very near future. And then we're in the process of developing other strategies to be implemented in short order. And we'll also be discussing some changes in the direction of the DMV would like to take in alignment with these efforts with MSU in this, this marketing and social media campaign. We'll also be discussing that later on the agenda as well.
Thank you, Adam. Any questions of board members of staff on the communication, what's been provided by Adam? Seeing none, we will now open the public comment portion of our meeting. And what will happen is those that are in the queue, you will be called on by the last 3 digits of your telephone number, and you will have 5 minutes to address the board. Chad, can you take over from here, please?
absolutely, thank you, Chair. Our first caller in the queue is caller with the last 3 digits of 100. You will be unmuted and given 5 minutes to speak. If you do not wish to speak, please say pass. Caller 100, your time begins now.
Yeah, this is Jerry Griffin. I'm here for item 6.1 on the business agenda with CA East Lansing. Just here for comment if needed. Thanks.
Thank you. Next caller.
Okay, our next caller is a caller with the last 3 digits of 580. You will be unmuted and given 5 minutes to speak. If you do not wish to speak, please say pass. Caller with the digits 580, your time begins now. $580, do you wish to speak? Okay, thank you. Moving on, our next caller is caller with the last digits of 963. Caller with the last 3 digits of 963. You will be unmuted and given 5 minutes to speak. If you do not wish to speak, please say pass. The caller with the digits 963. Your time begins now.
Hi, this is Alice Trigger, 621 Sunset Lane. I just wanted to explain the email I sent previously. I sent to the DDA because I thought, based on the meeting schedule, that the DDA was going to meet before the BRA, but there were several meetings with the BRA. I wanted to thank you all for deciding to hire a financial advisor to advise you on the question of the bond with regard to the BRA. There is still an open question about what can be paid for in terms of principal and interest for the bond out of the TIF. As you know, several city council members, including the two who just resigned, who voted on this back in 2017, have said clearly that they very much intended the TIF to be limited to $50 million, roughly $50 million, not $56 million. That's a $6 million difference for the taxpayers, which is significant when we think about things like paying the pensions. So I just want you all to be aware that the position that Miller Canfield is now in is a problematic position for the BRA, because Miller Canfield has to defend its previous work in order to protect Miller Canfield. That's not the same as acting in the interest necessarily of the BRA. They have a fiduciary responsibility to act in our interests, but their inclination will, of course, be to defend what they did previously. So it's going to be very helpful if we can get counsel that will advise not only the DDA but the BRA, and I see that that's been introduced as a concept, and I'm glad about that, because it's going to be important for the BRA to understand how to, if possible, defend us on that $6 million. I'm glad you're no longer simply taking the word of the developer's financial advisor, Brian Leffler from Baird, in terms of what has to be paid now and what is best for us. It may be the case that paying more money up front is both required and wise, but it would be good to get independent advice on that issue. So I appreciate that you are pursuing that. One question I did have is why the RFPQ process was extended for the attorneys. I'm assuming it means we didn't get a lot of applications, or perhaps didn't get any applications, and I was hoping we could get some information about how many, if any, have applied and whether or not we're in trouble in that way. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you. To my knowledge, we have a couple of responses. We wanted to make certain that we were getting an adequate representation of potential firms to consider. And so it seemed to make sense to extend that time period. So we will close the public comment portion of the meeting. Thank you for the callers that called in, and we will move on to our business agenda. Item 6.1, which is the site plan and special use permit, an application from CA East Lansing, Inc. for the property at 1234 East Grand River. And who is going to queue this up? Is it David Haywood?
Yes, I'll take that today.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, yeah, thank you. So this is a proposal for a marijuana adult use retailer. The prior use of the building was a 6-unit, 3-bedroom apartment complex. And the applicant has discontinued that use and is preparing for marijuana uses. The City Council granted the applicant a special use permit in April of 2019 for a medical marijuana provisioning center, which at the time proposed to occupy the first 2 floors. Later in February, or earlier in this year of February, they modified that approval to reconfigure the interior floor space to use all 3 of the floors, and made some modifications to the 2nd floor to create a vaulted ceiling and that kind of thing. Some of the changes from the March 2019 proposal, again, I mentioned the vaulted ceiling, use of the 3rd floor, and they did some minor site modifications, moving their walkway, making some changes to the ADA approach to the rear entrance, and widening the driveway to the required width. So they're also making some revisions to the exterior, including removing the ground level windows for security purposes, reducing the window height, removing balconies, adding metal cladding at building recesses, and providing proposed facade decorative element, and painting the exterior gray and with green awning and accent areas to coincide with the Pincana brand colors. Planning Commission acted on this in July with support, and the City Council has a public hearing scheduled for August 11th. With that, I would take any questions.
Was it a unanimous support, David, from the Planning Commission, or were there any outstanding issues?
It was nearly unanimous. It was 7-1.
Okay. Are there questions of board members for staff?
This is Jeff.
Yes, Jeff, go ahead.
So is it meeting all the obligations of zoning, permitting, and the direction the city wants to head? This is the kind of the first I'm hearing about it, so I wanted to just catch up on where the history is.
Yes. So it by and large, other than some of the minor modifications to the interior floor plan and the exterior, the use is fairly consistent with the prior approval, that being the medical marijuana provisioning center. And really the only thing they're doing different here is adding basically a product line to their floor, not unlike how a retailer, another retailer outside of the marijuana industry would be adding something else to their floor plan, like maybe packaged alcohol or something like that. So it's similar in that sense that, you know, they're already kind of set up and geared up for the use, but are adding something new to it.
I know, David, that as far as the zoning analysis, this project is in conformity with all of the site area and setbacks. There was one question that we addressed at executive and finance, which might be helpful just for board members if you could explain how the different patrons to the business will now be handled with regard to those that are recreational users and those that are medical users.
Right. So my understanding is that, right, there are two categories of customers, that being medical, you know, patients with a medical card, and then adult users that are 21 and over. As they enter the building, they are screened from that perspective. So someone with a medical card would be allowed to enter, and then there would be essentially two product lines on the floor. Those categorized as medical product, and then those categorized as, I guess, recreational product. And they're screened in terms of their allowances for their medical usage and how much they've purchased and how much they have left on their card to be able to purchase at that time. And then they would only be able to likely, well, I guess they could, if they're an adult, they could choose either one of them. But if they're have a medical need, they would be going after the medical product. And those would be clearly identified on the floor and categorized separately, although they would be you know, kind of an open floor plan. They would be segmented accordingly.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions of staff? So this will be on the City Council's agenda for their August meeting. Is that correct, David?
Yes, August 11th.
Okay, and that for a public hearing.
Correct.
I will offer a motion to approve what has been presented and ask for a second. Is there anyone wishing to? Michael? I think this is followed along the path of being evaluated by a variety of boards and commissions, as well as city staff, and had a lot of weigh-in from the community and the direction that appears that the city is supporting. So I'm comfortable with moving ahead and making a formal recommendation to the city council to support this. With that said, any other comments? If we could have Chad call the question then.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Ballein,
Yes.
Kroom,
Yes, sir.
Duan,
Yes.
Hackney,
Yes.
Kruger,
You're muted, Michael.
Yes.
yes. Lahanas,
Yes.
Levinson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
and Mayor Stevens.
I don't believe Mayor Stevens is participating in the meeting.
I joined in late. I
Oh.
apologize about that, Chair. Which item are we on?
6.1.
6.1. I will vote yes.
Okay,
Motion passes 9-0.
thank you. We will move on to our next business agenda item, 6.2, a modified special use permit, an application to modify a special use permit from Gateway of East Lansing LLC with a property at 300 West Grand River Avenue to convert first floor retail space to a fitness center for residents and non-residents of 300 West Grand River Avenue. David, is this you as well, David Haywood?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this proposal is for a portion of the Gateway development at 300 West Grand on the ground floor to convert a portion of the reserved vacant retail space to a fitness center at about just over 1,500 square feet. The proposal is for the fitness center to be available to residents of the Gateway development and non-residents. And the non-residents would be those residents that were affiliated with DTN managed properties in the area. And they're also proposing or would be allowing instructional classes such as yoga or other related things at a fee to the public at large. So the overall development is a 4-story mixed use. And currently in the development, there is a Big B coffee shop with a drive-through. There's just over 400 square feet of office space and 39 2-bedroom apartments. And then some leftover vacant retail space. The hours of operation would be limited to 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. And the Planning Commission met on this in June with a unanimous support. And it's scheduled for a public hearing in front of City Council on August 11th. And with that, I would take any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions of board members, of staff?
This is Jeff.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Just out of curiosity, was the time frame of opening, was that set by the owners or was that set by the city?
The hours of operation are governed by the existing special use permit.
Okay, thank you.
For the overall development.
Thank you. Any additional questions? I'll offer a motion to support this use as far as a formal recommendation to the City Council, and ask for a second.
Greg Ballein, second.
Sorry, Luke, I saw your hand and I heard Greg, so we'll have it seconded by Greg.
Sounds
this
good.
time around. Any discussion? Seeing none, Chad, will you take the roll call vote, please?
Thank you, Chair. Ballein,
Yes.
Kroom,
Yes.
Dewan,
Yes.
Hackney,
Yes.
Kruger,
Yes.
Lahanas,
Yes.
Levinson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Stevens.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We will now move on to item 6.3, site plan and special use permit and application from Neumann Smith Architecture for the property at the northwest corner of Abbot Road and Albert Avenue, city parking lot number 4, to construct a 7-story office building, including an MSU Federal Credit Union branch office, community space, general office space, leasable tenant spaces, related support and service spaces, and related site work. Is that you, David?
Yep. Thank you. So this is a proposal for a 7-story office building at just under 105 feet, totaling out at just under 88,000 square feet. The first floor would be occupied by the Michigan State Federal Credit Union branch offices, and then a portion of that first floor would be open for future tenant space. And then the second floor of the building would be reserved for community space, and the floors 3 through 7 would be reserved for general office, both for MSU FCU and future leasable tenant space. Property zoned B3, City Center Commercial District. Total site size is 0.3 acres and is the former lot 4 parking lot and a portion of the Albert Avenue right-of-way created by the realignment of Albert Avenue. The main lobby entrance faces the southeast corner of the site at Abbot and Albert, with delivery and service at the rear in the alley. The building hours of operation are Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. To midnight, as well as Saturday, and generally closed on Sunday. Building facades primarily made of brick masonry, spandrel glass, and an aluminum curtain wall system. The applicant did provide a traffic impact statement. They expect to generate 100 trips in the AM peak hour, 93 trips during the PM peak hour. They do anticipate distributing their parking demand through the municipal parking system in 3 different garages, that being the Center City Garage, which would handle the bulk of their parking at 85%, Grove Street at 10%, and the MEC Garage at 5%. The proposal is consistent with the city's master plan and current zoning. There have been, the Planning Commission met on this last night, and one of the issues that staff has found that will need to be addressed is the, I guess, if you will, the neighborhood manners requirement for tall buildings in the B3 district when adjacent to residential properties. So as we know, the DDA properties on Evergreen, immediately west to this site, are zoned RM32, which is a residential district. The special use permit that's required for this development is for additional height above the base height for the district. So the B3 district allows buildings to be up to 64 feet. Anything higher than that, they have to get a special use permit for. So in this case, they're getting the special use permit for that additional height. One of the standards for that is if additional height buildings are adjacent to a residentially zoned property, that additional height has to be set back farther away from the residential property. So we know that there is just over 40 feet above that base height. Since the property is 21 feet from the Evergreen properties, we know that that portion of it is going to need to be set back about 20 feet. So they've been aware of this. Of course, the proposal does not include this. This was kind of discovered, unfortunately, after the fact. So they will have to pursue a variance if they want to continue with the current building configuration, which I believe they do. They have applied for a variance and we're currently processing that. We don't have a date for the ZBA meeting at this point, but it's expected that it will be in one of the last 2 weeks of August. Planning Commission will meet again on this August 12th, I believe, and with potential action that night. They held their public hearing last night. And with that, I would take any questions.
I have a question, David. So can you elaborate a little bit more on the building hours of operation and what would we anticipate would happen from 6 a.m. till midnight in the building outside of the branch? Why is that defined by the zoning code?
No, it is not. It's not defined by the zoning code. It'll be reserved to office uses and related type uses. So it's not necessarily defined by the zoning code. It is asked of the zoning code when somebody makes a proposal for a development and use, just to get an understanding of kind of where they're headed. What are they doing? When are they doing it? So that we have a heads up if there are going to be any issues with that. Obviously, with an office use, it's not likely going to be any kind of issue. So between the hours of 6 a.m. and at midnight, they're going to be doing office type things and related office type things. The only exception to that would be the community space, and that would be potentially everything from instructional, community instructional things like how to do your taxes, or bring in speakers on all kinds of issues, and potentially performances and other community related events approved by the credit union. So at that point, those hours, they would fluctuate within that time frame. Those events would fluctuate in that time frame, and generally our understanding is that they would not hold any office hours on Sunday, but potentially events. But at this time, it doesn't sound like that, because they're not going to be there on Sundays. So they likely won't have events on Sundays as well.
Okay. And
sorry to interrupt you, but that, I suppose that could change if they see a demand, but at this point, they don't anticipate having employees in the building to the extent that they would be managing events during that time.
Okay. And do you have renderings that you're going to be sharing, or?
They did submit renderings. They're actually very nice. I don't know, Heather, if there's a way to bring those up. I could certainly share them. There they go. So this is look that first one, that first slide is looking northwest. So you'd be standing in the intersection of Albert and Abbot. And that's a view as if you were standing in Evergreen between the Abbot and the Graduate. So on the left there is the alley.
Yep.
The very north side of the building, that would face Dublin Square is a blank wall, right? There are no windows or anything like that. And that's typical of a zero lot line building. Anytime you have a building built to the property line, building code says you can't have any windows in the event that the development to the north is built right to that wall. So it would have a party wall in that sense. So that's why if you've looked at the proposal, there are no windows on the north side of the building.
So
What will the finish be on the north side of the building? What will the exterior finish be?
I believe it's brick.
So it won't just be sort of cinder block. It will, although it'll look pretty
that
blank.
I don't know. That I don't know. I'd have to look at the elevations. If you give me just a second, I can find that.
Chair, if I might.
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
Just want to point out a few things. First of all, the developers are panelists on this call, so their team can speak if you have questions of them. I think as far as the north exterior, that is the subject of a potential public art piece that they are looking into. So you might want to ask them to provide some color on that. In terms of the variance, because the DDA is the property owner of 314 Evergreen, and because it's been conditionally rezoned a number of times and is currently under a memorandum of understanding for a sale for non-residential use, it does seem from staff perspective that it's appropriate for the DDA to support a variance, and certainly the support of a variance by the property owner would be, I think, beneficial in terms of the Zoning Board of Appeals. The other thing I want to make sure we mention is the alley itself. There's some comments from the fire department regarding the width of the alley. They prefer to have it a little wider. From a planning perspective, it would make more sense to have the alley width adjusted and also to have the alley meet Albert Avenue at a 90-degree angle. And this seems more appropriately accomplished because of that, as part of any development that happens on the 314 Evergreen site. In fact, it can't really be effectuated until such time as 314 Evergreen would be demolished. So I just wanted to plant that seed with the DDA as part of the Citadel project. That is probably something we want to take under consideration in terms of that alley.
Thank you, Tom. Is there someone from the MSU Federal Credit Union Development Team that would like to elaborate on what Mr. Fehrenbach has just provided with regard to the northern side of the building and some of the issues with regard to the alley? And I don't know who that would be.
This is Kathy Bach with Newman Smith Architecture. Can you hear me?
Hi, Kathy. Welcome.
Good morning, or actually good afternoon at this point. Yes, I can comment as to the nature of the elevation there on the north side. It is brick. It's a gray brick, which is also seen on the other elevations of the building there on the west side, and also worked into right around the corners at the northeast and the northwest sides. And the dark brick wraps those corners. And as it was explained by David Haywood and Tom as well, is that the rationale for that is that the north wall is a party wall to the development to the north, and really any openings really are really not possible. And even if they were, they'd have to be heavily protected, and it would also then preclude or make very troublesome for any future development, perhaps by anybody who develops the property to the north, and being able to have openings of their own along that side. And so really it is, and plus it also, as mentioned, is a good then opportunity for artwork along that elevation, should the artist elect to install artwork on that side. So it's, but it is brick along that side.
So Kathy, so I'm clear, is the intent to have artwork on the northern side of the building?
I know that the MSUFC was in discussion with the artist, and they're looking at the opportunities for where the artwork would be most appropriately placed. That is one of the options. Aaron, I don't know. Aaron with MSUFCU is on the call as well. Aaron, would you want to speak with that or to that?
Sure.
Hi, welcome, Aaron.
Hi. We're still evaluating that. We would like to make that a little bit more exciting. We realize that's a big wall and maybe not ideal. And we are looking into whether or not we may put some art on that wall. We've not made that decision yet, but we hope to incorporate some art on that north elevation.
It does appear to be a huge wall at 100 feet without having some, attractive characteristics. So,
yeah.
Well, I guess we will look forward to some additional conversations about how you progress in that area. Are there questions of the development team from board members? Michael Kruger?
Is there any other public art component to this, to the site plan, or is it currently required?
We certainly have a 1% for art ordinance where they're required to either provide the art on site and go through the Arts Commission process, or pay essentially a fee that would then go into the Public Arts Fund. So I think they, as a developer, they need to decide which process they prefer.
Well, when I asked Mr. Haywood for the renderings of the building, the one side of the building I really wanted to see was the north side of the building. I'm sure it will be a beautifully constructed building, as all of the MSU Federal Credit Union properties. But I just envisioned driving down Abbot Road to enter into campus, and I just think a 100-foot brick wall would not be the most attractive thing to come across. So, I recognize there's a lot of details that need to be worked out, but George and then David.
So yeah, I'm not necessarily crazy about the wall, but it's one of those things in an urban environment we kind of got to accept, because they can't really do much if they're going to have a building built adjacent to it. So they've got to sort of be good neighbors to the person who might build adjacent to them. So while it's not a great look, I certainly understand why they have to do it that way, and think that the rest of the building is so impressive that I think people will forgive the blank wall until something is built adjacent to it, in which case you won't even see it anymore. So in some way, to put a nice artwork there and then to have it covered up might be a shame as well. But that's something you guys have to consider, of course.
This is Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff, go ahead.
In other markets where you end up with the same kind of issue, there's, and I don't want to call it an advertisement or billboard spot, but there's something that is sellable or usable about that blank wall that actually adds value and character to the space versus just doing it for the sake of doing it. There may be some options there that both treat the space as a marketing moment for the developer, but also meeting the need of creating something attractive as you come into town.
Thank you, Jeff. David, you had an additional comment?
Oh, thanks. I think George covered everything that I was going to say. Probably better.
Sorry, Dave.
Okay. Are any other questions of the developer? Yes, Jim Kroom.
I have I guess a comment and a question. So I don't think I'm troubled by the variance for the alley setback requirement, because there ultimately will be a commercial development to the west across the alley. So it appears that we'll just have a sort of a high wall on one side of the alley, and then whatever the developer on the Evergreen property does, another high wall. So not troublesome there. I would be interested, I know that one of the potential developers is on the line, John McGraw, and I'm looking at it from the DDA standpoint. We own the property to the west, and if something's going to impact on the value of that property or the uses of it, I'd be interested in hearing about it. So from my layperson standpoint, I don't know if two commercial buildings with straight up walls in an alley are a problem or not, number one. And then the second question would be, did I hear correctly from staff that the fire department would like to eventually have a 20-foot alley? Will it be 16 and a half for a short period? And then we're saying that the extra 4 feet is coming from the DDA property and the future development property to the west, because that impacts the value to the DDA too. Those are my questions and comments.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, Tom, go ahead.
So the fire department does have the flexibility within the code to leave the alley in its current configuration. What I was saying is I think that from a planning perspective, having the alley hit Albert at a 90-degree angle and thus also allowing us to expand it a bit to meet their typical requirements might be something we want to consider as part of that redevelopment of the Evergreen properties.
So that the fire department may ultimately say 16 and a half is good enough permanently.
They do have the flexibility to be able to make that assessment, and indeed that is the current state of the alley. So it's not necessarily a done deal that we would make that change, but it's something I think we want to seriously consider as part of the redevelopment of the Evergreen properties.
David, you wanted to weigh in as well? You're muted.
So the fire chief has provided comment on that, and although they ultimately are looking for 20 feet in that alley, given the short extent of how much of this alley is adjacent to the site, and that there will be a future option with the redevelopment of the Evergreen properties, they've deemed that distance right there to be adequate for the time being. So I think we're over the hump of that issue.
So David, could you spell out for us then, the Planning Commission is going to take this up again? What is the expectation of the DDA this morning or this afternoon?
Well, I guess, we're looking for two things. We're looking for the DDA to weigh in overall, whether they support the proposal, and any comments, issues, that kind of thing would be helpful. And then, of course, to weigh in on the variance and with some support if the DDA so deems to be worthy of support, to have that kind of feedback on those two issues would be helpful at this point.
I think Jim Kroom touched on this, but maybe I'm misunderstanding the issue. Isn't it request for the variance is immaterial because what is proposed to be built to the west is a commercial structure. So that means the variance is not required. The variance is only needed with regard to an adjacent residential structure. Is that correct?
So the variance is required because it's a residence now and not likely to be either rezoned or redeveloped before this issue gets in front of council. So, no matter how you look at it, they've got to get through that issue. And I think that the DDA's input is material because one of the standards for issuing a variance is whether the proposed building would be determined to be a harmful to the residents or to the property owner of that other property. So what we need and are looking for is confirmation from the DDA whether it is or isn't And we think that it wouldn't be because we understand the future nature of that property. So I think it is very much material that we have that input to help the Zoning Board of Appeals evaluate whether this proposal would be deemed harmful to the property, the adjacent property. So by you being the property owner saying, no, we don't think it's gonna be harmful because any effect that's caused by it is either gonna be very difficult for even the residents in the building itself to even see it, let alone that they're not gonna be there for that much longer. So, you know, that's the kind of guidance we're looking for.
So this issue may eventually become moot to the extent of commercial buildings built. I'm still interested, since we have a memorandum of understanding with the developer now, and they're on the line. I would be interested in their view on that, because it will help me reach a decision on whether it affects our property, the DDA property.
Yeah, Jim, thank you. Let's go ahead and weigh in. If we could allow Mr. McGraw to comment on our current conversation. Welcome, John.
Hey, everyone. So I believe I know what the question is here. Tom and I and the city, DDA and I have spoke on this a little bit. And, you know, from a developer standpoint, from a River Caddis standpoint, we want to do everything that we can to work with the city to make this function well into the future. So whatever that looks like, but to be honest, the city, the DDA has to do with what they have today. They have to make the best decision going forward. So just in case the worst happens and our development isn't able to go through, you have to make the choice of what you have today.
I weigh in?
George?
Yeah, so I personally have no problem with granting or requesting that the variance be granted, or saying we have no problem with the variance, because even if you see what's there now, there's a building that we're sort of be facing the back of that building, and to have to step back, you know, 60 feet high and start stepping back, I think is kind of creates a burden for MSU that really they don't need to have. I mean, you could see if it was going to be single family homes into forever, perhaps you'd want that, but I don't think anyone envisions that there's going to be sort of low intensity residential on that site into the future. So even with the building that's there, it doesn't bother me. But when you think of what the future is going to be, this property could have been rezoned to some B property, the Evergreen properties. I mean, any time over the past years, it wasn't, because they're sort of waiting for the project to come and then do a conditional. But if it had been rezoned, we wouldn't even need this discussion. So I think everyone envisions it will be a B type use. And with that, there isn't a need for setback. So I would certainly support them getting their variance, and think that this is kind of an anomaly of the fact that we just never formally changed it. It's an RM32 now, I think. Is that right, Dave? And if it's a B2 or B3, you wouldn't need any setback at all, right?
That's absolutely correct.
Yes.
And George, I support it. I support this too, George. And all I was doing was trying to see if I had a blind spot, if a potential developer would help me through a blind spot. And so I'm in support of it.
Yeah, thank you. Mayor Stevens wanted to weigh in.
No, I was just gonna honestly say exactly what George and then David and then Tom and Jim just said. Yeah, no, I don't think it's a end all be all. And to the developer's point, you know, he said, which I do appreciate, you know, you need to do what's best for you, you know, on the very, you know, rare chance that, you know, a development project from them doesn't go through, you need to do what's best for you. And the truth is, I think we all know that these properties are going to be developed at some point. And so, you know, I think it's a moot point, you know, because we know it will be, whether it's through this developer or not. So, yeah, I'm in support of granting a variance for that.
Okay. Any other board member comments? So, do we need to take a formal action then with regard to our recommendation to council, or will this be coming back to us?
I think we should take action now if we're ready. I mean, I'm ready to make a motion. Tom Fehrenbach, do you have an opinion that we shouldn't do that now, or?
No, I think if you're ready, it's certainly appropriate for you to take that action now.
So could I make a motion? I would say.
Yeah, go ahead, George.
I would say that the DDA supports so are we looking to support the project and the variance, or just the variance?
I think both.
Both. So supporting.
George, can I weigh in on that?
Go ahead.
This is Tom Yaden.
Great.
Go ahead.
Yeah, could you make that two separate motions?
Okay.
One to the city council with regard to support for the project, and then a separate one to authorize the chair to execute a letter on behalf of the DDA supporting the variance.
Okay. So why don't we start with the support the project in its current form as presented to the city council. Support that the DDA supports the project as presented to the city council.
Second.
It's been offered by George, supported by the mayor, to support the project as presented in recommendation to the city council. Do you want to further speak to that, George?
I'm very supportive of the project, the way it looks and everything about it. And I think it's going to be great to have MSU FCU, who's a great employer in the city of East Lansing already, to have them expanded and have them downtown in a bigger presence, I think is great. It's one of the projects I'm most excited about. So I can't wait for it to move forward.
And Mayor Stevens?
Yeah, I would agree with all that. I'd say, this is a kind of a rare project in the sense that we haven't talked about it in a bit, but I mean, in the sense that in a way, the public actually got to kind of vote on it, which is pretty cool. And I think that, not only have I heard from a lot of different residents that they're very, very supportive of having MSU downtown, but I mean, I'm personally excited about it. So I think this is a very reasonable height and building for what the location is. So
I was going to also weigh in. I'm very supportive of the project. I do appreciate the sensitivity by the MSU Federal Credit Union to address the northern wall, because I think that will be certainly something that residents will have an opinion on, and particularly the sight lines coming down Abbot. There could be subsequent development down the road, but their sensitivity to contemplating artwork on the northern exterior of the building is certainly very welcome, in my opinion. Jim, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just would reiterate all those comments and applaud the credit union for their vision in locating an important facility from their corporate perspective in a city center. I'm excited about what it will do to the neighborhood. I'm excited to see happy and satisfied employees of the credit union be able to walk home from work, and the effects that will have on the surrounding neighborhoods. So I'm 100% behind this.
Thank you. Any other board member comments? Seeing none, Chad, will you take the roll call vote then, please, on Mr. Lahanas's motion, seconded by the mayor?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Ballein?
Emphatically yes.
Kroom?
Yes.
Dewan?
Yes.
Hackney? Kruger?
Yes.
Lahanas?
Yes.
Levinson?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Stevens?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And thank you, MSU Federal Credit Union, for your participation today, and all other parties. Oh, we have another motion, right? George, go ahead.
Does someone else want to make it, or I can just say, make a motion supporting that the chair sign a letter in support of a variance request from MSU FCU to the ZBA. Was that right, Tom?
Yeah, that works.
Great.
Support.
Motion's been supported by Greg. Was it Greg? That's
correct. Yes.
Any further conversation? Go ahead and call the roll, Chad, if you will. Roll call vote.
Thank you, Chair. Ballein?
Yes.
Kroom?
Yes.
Dewan,
Yes.
Hackney,
Yes.
Kruger,
Yes.
Lahanas,
Yes.
Levinson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yep.
and Mayor Stevens.
Yes.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you. And thank you again for your participation today.
Thank you.
We will move on to item 6.4, consideration of a supplement to the Memorandum of Understanding with River Caddis Development regarding the redevelopment of the DDA-owned properties at 314 through 344 Evergreen, and a review of the draft and purchase and sale agreement. Mr. Fehrenbach.
Thank you. The DDA acquired the Evergreen properties at 314 to 344 Evergreen about 11 years ago. We're currently servicing about $5.5 million in debt, which was restructured in February of 2019 to lower the principal payments and push out a put and reset feature all to April of 2023. The intent of that restructuring was to allow the DDA additional time to redevelop the properties while responsibly managing the debt. After several projects did not come to fruition, in November of 2019, the DDA put out the request for proposals for projects that was informed by stakeholders and their engagement. 2 project concepts were formally submitted in January. A review committee of stakeholders was then established per resolution of the DDA. Prior to March 19th, the meeting date that was planned for a formal discussion by the DDA and the review committee, 2 things happened. One of the respondents withdrew, leaving the Citadel project and River Caddis Development as the only active participant. And 2, as we all know, COVID-19 and the necessary responses effectively canceled any public meetings, including the one on the 19th, for some time, and has changed the landscape in many ways, not all of which are fully understood. Given all the uncertainty, but still desiring to move forward as much as practical, in April, the DDA and the developer, River Caddis, entered into a Memorandum of Understanding, which essentially gave the developer a 90-day period of exclusivity to further their plans, with the knowledge that the DDA would not pursue any other developments or otherwise market the properties. It also established the idea of a project team of stakeholders to monitor the progress of the plans, the documents, and the funding sources, and to provide input along the process. The DDA formally established the project team per resolution in May, and an initial meeting has been held in June. Meanwhile, the developers continue to make progress, and obviously Mr. McGraw's here to speak to that. And with the 90-day MOU exclusive period is essentially ending today or tomorrow, unless it is extended mutually. And so the action requested today is essentially to extend the period for 90 days through the approval of a supplement to the Memorandum of Understanding. The developers drafted also a purchase and sale agreement as a starting point for a more formal negotiation of the sale of the properties. And the expectation is that within the 90-day extension of this PSA, that would allow for the time for the negotiation of the PSA and thereby supplant the MOU. Staff has completed an initial review of the PSA, which certainly needs some input from the DDA and some updating to incorporate terms that are aligned with what the DDA would typically approve. Although we could certainly give it an overview today, if you so desire, I think it makes the most sense for staff to complete our review and suggest edits for the next P&I meeting if you move forward with the extension, which would basically give us a chance to queue up the main points and track changes and get feedback to essentially have an informed discussion, also including the specialized counsel that we're seeking at the current moment. So considering the factors involved, staff does think that a 90-day extension is reasonable and therefore recommends that the DDA approve the supplement to the MOU and authorize the chair to execute it. And again, the developer is here and staff is also happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Tom. Are there questions of board members of Mr. Fehrenbach or city staff?
Tom, this is Jeff.
Go ahead, Jeff.
We've, all things considered, having an opportunity to continue to look at an office complex for downtown East Lansing, as we just heard from previous MSU-FCU proposal. It's exactly in the wheelhouse of what everybody wants here. Any opportunity for us to keep this on the line is a good one in my mind. Are we getting flooded or inundated or even inquiries coming in from other developers wanting to, take advantage of this, the expiration of this window? Are you getting many of those inquiries coming in?
No, we are not.
Have you gotten any?
No, not to my knowledge. Adam, have you had any inquiries?
No, I have not.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeff. Mayor Stevens, I thought I saw your hand raised. No, okay. I would like to invite the developer, John McGraw, to make a statement to the board. Welcome.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Tom. And thanks everybody for having me. Well, this is a fairly straightforward request today. I wanted to touch on a few things, what we've done in the past 3 months. April 24th, when this was actually signed and agreed upon, surprisingly was a much different time in terms of COVID. It was one of the first full months that we had that we were going through it, still as surprisingly as uncertain as today. And we were hoping this 90 days, I can't remember exactly what it was from the governor's order at that time, but we were looking at a few more weeks of close down. So hoping that the economy opened back up and hoping for a little bit more certainty for our tenants and occupants going forward. But we remained steadfast in our vision, in our mission, and in our use of this development. Surprisingly, not only have we've got positive feedback, but we've gotten enthusiasm. We've gotten more collaboration, and we've got more people to talk to about this idea. Because while this is a dark time, people are still looking towards the future, and the future can still be bright. So with all of this being said, I've been working with as many community stakeholders who will either take my call, email, at all costs. Anybody from the city trying to turn this vision into a reality. We're working with our occupants and potential occupants into putting together and implementing a sustainable plan, not just for a building, but for the city going forward. All of that being said, we've gotten to a place where the exclusivity ends tomorrow, as Mr. Fehrenbach stated. And what we're asking for through this supplement of Memorandum of Understanding is that we have a 90-day window to negotiate a purchase and sale agreement for the DDA properties, while we concurrently continue our process of implementation and working with our tenants to really create something special for the next 50 to 75 years. So with all of this being said, we're, from everybody on the River Caddis side, we're very grateful for all of the collaboration and all of the encouragement that we're receiving. And that encouragement is building up inside and creating more enthusiasm within our group and within our tenants. And it's just further proof of how much we can accomplish together rather than separately. So I'm here to answer any questions that I can.
Yeah, Mayor Steve, thank you, Mr. McGraw. Mayor Stevens?
Thank you, Chair. So can you run us through some of the conversations that you've had with stakeholders, who those stakeholders were, and just kind of, how those have changed or edited or, I guess, altered your vision of the project?
So just so I make sure that I heard that right, stakeholders who I've talked to around, business stakeholders, community stakeholders, staff, that the gist?
Yeah.
So, these projects usually start off as one thing, and then organically evolve into what it's going to be. This vision, mission of this collaborative ecosystem has not changed. It's only grew in people's minds as of what this can actually be and what it can actually grow into organically. And it's a challenging vision to see because you're looking at the whole hill instead of just taking step by step. The information that we've gotten from stakeholders has rarely been negative, if any at all. I think that we'd all like to see this happen. We've talked to the church, we've talked to MSU, FCU, we've talked to city staff, we've talked to Oak Hill neighborhood. We've done the project review committee, which had, I believe, 12 to 14 people on it, and then individual meetings. And that's where I mentioned I've talked to anybody who would take my call, and that's quite a few people. So all positive feedback for the most part, and we're just trying to turn it into a reality.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments or questions of the developer? Seeing none, I will offer a motion to approve the extension of 90 days. I really appreciate the good faith effort that the developer has made in submitting a purchase and sale agreement. To me, that demonstrates their commitment to want to successfully redevelop this property. I have been party to some of those conversations with the Evergreen project review team, which I think have been quite favorable. There seems to be a tremendous amount of synergy regarding the redevelopment of this project. What has been proposed has been an office structure, which is conceptually what the community has articulated all along that they would like to see in this area of the city. And so these development projects are difficult. They take time to come together, and I'm fully supportive of offering an extension. I see Mayor Stevens.
Yeah, I will wait until there's a second on the motion, but I did have a question about that agreement that I wanted to ask. But
I'll second the motion.
It's been seconded by Jim. Yes, Mayor Stevens.
I was wondering if maybe the city attorney. I'm not an attorney. I don't pretend to be, so I was just wondering if you could kind of run me through item number 3, like the terms of payment, and just the item B on that, which is allowing for payment of balance out of and upon purchaser's receipt of proceeds from tax increment financing or other incentive programs. Is that just fairly typical for a purchase and sale agreement? Obviously, I think there's an intention to have some kind of incentive with this, but just an explanation.
I'm sorry, I was unmuting, and when it told me I was unmuting, I lost some of what you question was.
It was all good. All good. No, I was.
Which particular aspect are you looking for?
I will repeat. So again, I'm not an attorney, and I'm just kind of asking for a clarification whether this is like very typical in these kind of agreements. But and number 3, terms of payment, item B, remainder of purchase price shall be paid for the purchaser, blah blah blah, and then it says, which shall allow the payment of such balance out of and upon purchaser's receipt of proceeds from tax increment financing or other incentive programs. Is this just typical? Or
no, that's an unusual clause. We haven't given a full analysis of the proposed buy and sell agreement because I was assuming that the DDA would want its newly retained counsel to weigh in on all of that. That was certainly an area of concern that I spoke with Mr. Fehrenbach about. There's a number of other areas of concern with regard to the proposed development agreement, a proposed purchase and sale agreement. I think what Mr. Fehrenbach has stated is correct. I think we just want the 90 days in order to ferret through all these issues that we saw, as well as whatever other issues the new counsel for the DDA might see.
Okay, thank you very, very much for that clarification. I appreciate it.
Sure.
I appreciate that, Tom. I guess I didn't have a full understanding of the breadth of what you were saying, so my bad. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. Jim Kroom.
Thanks, Peter. Just in terms of the timing of the expiration date that we're voting on, could I ask staff when would it be October DDA meeting is? Just to make sure that we meet before the expiration again.
Yes, thank you for considering that. And actually, the expiration would be on the exact date of your October meeting that would be regularly scheduled on the 22nd.
Can we move it to the following Monday's tight because there's a weekend to the following Tuesday? Would that be November, expire on November? What date is that? August, September.
Tom,
I would just let staff pick a date. Would it be November 3? Is that the week following?
No, the following Monday would be the 26th. But if you're going to meet on the 22nd, I don't see any issue with having this expire on the date of your meeting, since you could take any action at that point to either extend it or we may be voting on the PSA at that point and supplanting this agreement altogether. But
So
if you'd like to
90
put some
days,
buffer dates,
so 90 days would be on the date of our meeting?
that's correct.
Tom, do you see any difficulties with it expiring on the day of our meeting?
Are you asking Mr. Yaden?
No, I'm sorry, Tom, I'm asking you.
I don't. I think that it's a, if you want to create some buffer days, that's certainly okay too. But from my perspective, taking action or taking this up on the date that it expires doesn't produce any issues. It expects that there's either action or there's not on that date, but from the DDA to either continue or not.
Okay.
So from my perspective, a couple buffer days don't hurt just to get documents inked, just in case people aren't available.
So a couple buffer days. What is the actual date, Tom Fehrenbach?
October 22nd would be 90 days from tomorrow, which is the date of the expiration.
What if we change that to October 25th and gave us the benefit of a couple days if there needs to be? We can certainly address what our action is going to be at our board meeting, but as Mr. Yaden has suggested, it might be of benefit to have a couple days. Does that make sense?
Why don't I suggest 5 days? So why don't you just make it 95? That way we're in the middle of a week, and if we need to track down some signatures, that would help.
Okay. Well, we'll offer that as a friendly amendment to the main motion if there's no objection. Hearing none, let's go back to the main motion. Is there any additional discussion or comments by board members? Seeing none, Chad, can you take the roll call vote on the motion to provide the extension?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Ballein,
Yes.
Kroom,
Yes.
Dewan,
Yes.
Hackney,
Yes.
Kruger,
Yes.
Lahanas,
Yes.
Levinson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
and Mayor Stevens.
Yes.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. McGraw, for participating today. And I encourage you to continue to have those conversations with stakeholders as you have been doing. So thank you again.
Thank you, everyone.
We will move on to our next item, 6.5, consideration of the Downtown Management Board's requests for changes to our project budget. And who is going to address it? Is that you, Adam?
Yes, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, staff is recommending approval of a budget amendment for the $20,000 authorized to the DMB back on June 11th. Since then, we've canceled live events in the downtown where there was money authorized in that budget item approved in June to spend on marketing and hiring and procuring that entertainment. And so staff they're recommending reallocating those funds for temporary art installations that are going to promote and encourage, social distancing, mask wearing, and also a reallocation to help with the MSU and City of East Lansing collaborative effort on their marketing campaign. And with that, I can take any questions.
So what are the prescribed plans with Michigan State University?
So we have been working for weeks now. MSU has developed a lot of graphics that have both, it communicates the collaborative effort between the City of East Lansing and MSU, but also those graphics, they're trying to promote and encourage safe behaviors when shopping, visiting, and eating downtown. And MSU has designed those graphics, shared them with us. And so we're in the process of organizing those graphics into a toolkit, if you will, to share with downtown businesses and to print the flyers. We have a banner that went in today down at the clock tower in Ann Plaza that MSU facilitated. We have one coming in on Harrison and Michigan Avenue. But this is all inclusive of part of our effort to market downtown. And when you're visiting, shopping, eating, dining downtown, promoting and encouraging safe behaviors.
Okay. Are there questions of staff from board members? So we are just simply reauthorization of the $20,000 to activities that can help promote safety in the downtown relative to the global pandemic.
Correct. We're not requesting any additional funds at this time. Just simply what we were going to spend on live entertainment, we want to spend on these art installations and promotional materials.
Yeah, I think it's money well used. I will offer a motion to support staff's request to reauthorize the $20,000 to the DMB that we've already approved and asked for a second.
I'll second.
Supported by Michael Kruger. Any additional conversation with regard to this item? Hearing none, Chad, could you take a roll call vote, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Ballein,
Yes.
Kroom,
Yes.
Dewan,
Yes.
Hackney, Kruger,
Yes.
Lahanas,
George is muted.
Okay. Levinson,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
and Mayor Stevens.
Yes.
Passes unanimously 8-0.
Thank you. Do we have any unfinished business agenda item? I don't believe so. Our committee reports, I can speak to exec and finance and the project and infrastructure. We had our meeting this past Monday. Many of the items that we've discussed today were items that we addressed at the subcommittee level. If anyone wishes to speak with regard to the Public Policy and Market Development Committee, and I don't know if that is, I do want to note that Luke Hackney has agreed to become the chair of that subcommittee. Luke, I appreciate your stepping up and taking on that responsibility. And I think with Michael moving into the treasurer's role, it's a way that we can get a lot of talent of people in key positions. So thank you for both of you agreeing to do that. Anyone who wishes to speak on the meeting of this past week?
I could talk a little bit about it. You're talking about the market development one, right? Public policy.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I know we talked mainly about the third-party delivery service situation and whether or not we wanted to, as a city, join in with possibly Lansing and or other surrounding cities and come up with a way to limit the amount of money that the third-party delivery services can charge businesses. So we didn't really leave it anywhere, I don't think, as far as I think there's some work going on with it at the state level as well, but I'm not quite sure where that's at. And I'm not quite sure exactly where we left it as far as what the city will be working on with regards to it, but that was sort of the main part of our discussion.
Thank you, Michael. Any other comments? Thank you. We'll move on to our item 9 on our agenda. Luke, has the parking task force had any conversations or?
We have not met since COVID. Yeah.
Thank you. And Jim, Downtown Management Board, I don't presume there's been any other than the discussion about the reauthorization of the monies. Jim Kroom. Jim, you're muted. Oh, okay. Sounds like everything is fine there. Any board member comments or concerns? Anyone wishing to make a statement? Seeing none, I will offer a motion to adjourn the meeting. Ask for a second. Been seconded by Mayor Stevens. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
guys.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.
Bye.